Welcome to Breaking the News Plus on this Tuesday night, where we will again focus on fraud because there were big developments today. In the latest move to fight fraud, the governor, Tim Walz, today unveiled his plan for a massive overhaul of the state's human services system. So what to make of it? We bring in Kelly Dietz, our producer, with our investigative team. Why, Kelly? Because fraud is what this team has exposed now for almost 6 years. So, Kelly, the governor's plan today for this massive overhaul of the state human services system, is this the fix?
Well, it can't be the fix yet for two reasons. One, because there's a lot of pressure that's coming on the other side of this announcement, and two, because it technically isn't official yet. It is just to say it is a proposal, it is a plan. Hold your horses. It doesn't mean that this is happening today. It still needs to go through the legislature. So that's first and foremost. Second of all, is this a fix just in its efficacy? We talked about this earlier, but I think that there's some world in which there could never be a fix for this fraud. The governor today called it, the current system was like a Frankenstein. So all of the changes that have been tried by the legislature, by different groups coming forward, it's just been this system of like slap a spare tire on here, throw a bolt on the side here, and it's this Frankenstein-looking system that's not a true fix. So his fix and his proposal is essentially like a build it back from the ground up plan. Does it actually work in reality? That remains to be unseen. Does it actually take a day or does it take an eternity?
For his plan to go through all the parts of it, he would need bipartisan buy-in. And we, within minutes of his announcement, got lots of word from both people in his Democratic Party and, of course, the Republican Party saying absolutely not.
Yeah, you essentially have Senator John Hoffman, a huge name, chair of the Human Services Committee, coming forward, essentially saying that this is not really the plan. I didn't receive any collaboration on this. I received this the night before. This is going to take a lot more collaboration and speaking to the players that be in order to come with a workable plan. And right now, it doesn't look like this plan received the collaboration that it needed.
And because this is so fraught with partisan fervor. I mean, again, the fraud is the stated reason for Operation Metro Surge, the largest immigration enforcement in American history, seized on one city. So there is so much wrapped up in fraud in Minnesota that has ouchies for so many different people and political ramifications for so many different people. It's hard to even look at this just for what it is. So from the investigations that you have done that really bring all of this to the surface, is the solution, in your opinion, the I-Team's opinion, yes, we need to build something new from the ground up because it was so easy to defraud the state, or keep going with this piecemeal approach?
So a part of what was discussed in the plan today was that this is a system that wasn't centralized, the technology is old, and the system itself is broken. The agencies are not talking to one another, and that essentially created a system in which fraudsters can look and say, oh, well, they're not seeing my billing, and this person over here is not seeing my approvals, and this person over here isn't seeing that. And because no one is talking to one another, it fostered a situation in which fraudsters could see through those cracks and commit bad acts.
Okay.
So I think to one sense, it's good because today's proposal addressed that. This is not a centralized system. We aren't talking to each other. We need to talk to each other. That needs to change. The piece that I thought was also really interesting was the solution to that, which was that everything goes to the state. And in theory, that makes sense.
Right.
But one piece is that it essentially eliminates MCOs, which are managed care organizations, separate entities from what's called like fee-for-service.
This
Medicaid
plan
for the
today
state.
eliminates MCOs.
It eliminates MCOs, and right now there's 8 different MCOs that would be eliminated, and everything would just go under the state. And while that centralizes, we have found in our investigations that the MCOs were some of the individuals who were shouting fraud to the state, who had identified fraud to the state, and instead the state actually looked the other way when the MCOs had even gone so far as to hosting sit-down presentations with DHS, the Department of Human Services, the state agency that is in charge of oversight for fraud. And so eliminating the MCOs, actually Rep. Robbins made the point today that she's not sure that that's the solution when they were some of the more robust fraud controls within the system.
And as to make your point crystal clear for the people watching and listening, the MCOs were the ones that raised flags early saying we see fraud.
Yeah.
And the Wells administration or DHS or both didn't do anything?
Yeah, like picture presentation on the screen up to including billing for dead people. And there was nothing done, no action taken on some of these organizations that were called out as we have high concern, high level of fraud. And additionally, we're seeing fraud across the board here. And DHS did not act, actually in turn responded to one of, it was Hennepin Health, who was the MCO of some of the documents that we were able to retrieve from a records request. And DHS responded to one of the emails flagging fraud saying, we are flying blind here. They had no knowledge of, they were flying blind.
So Representative Robbins makes this point, points out the coverage you did that showed that MCOs were saying there is fraud. So we saw it work, at least from the MCOs and at that point. But when you look at it from this proposal today, do you think there's merit to it all going to the state? And I want to say that too and acknowledge for viewers as well that obviously there's pushback on that because Republican representatives point out, why would we give the state any full control over this? Because the state lost control.
Yeah. I'm not a politician and I'm not in the government, but I do see that there is this tension between this need for the state to have communication and centralization in its controls without understanding more and seeing it in action. I don't know what the solution for that would be without eliminating the MCOs and going to the state, but from what I've seen, it seems like the MCOs were good actors. So I don't know. It might just need to look like a revamp in technology. There's been the idea floated out before that we need a statewide office of inspector general.
Right.
You know, there's other avenues. It does seem like today that this proposal will not get seen through the legislature. But I think that to Governor Walsh's credit, you have to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And like, what is he going to do? Just take bullets on not doing anything on fraud all day and then present something and
therein lies the kind of the political point, whether you support the governor or not. It feels like almost that no matter what idea he comes up with, because it's coming from him and because it was his administration under which most of this fraud occurred, any idea that comes from them is dead on arrival.
Fair.
In just a political perspective. But obviously something has to be done because therein lies the tension for Minnesotans.
Also fair.
So what can fix this? And if you use the term they're not talking to each other in terms of how this fraud can occur, I feel like they're not talking to each other on how to fix it.
That's a great point. And that is the point that Hoffman raised. That is the point that this nonprofit for helping individuals get health care raised. The feedback and the outcry afterwards has been like, where's the collaboration? Make sure you're looking at these points and what does the future look like? Mm-hmm. Paint us that picture because it remains unclear.
Yeah, and is it something as simple as, we're not the only state in the country that disperses Medicaid funds. So who is doing it right? Do we have a model we can look to?
Walz did cover Connecticut and call out Connecticut as kind of this golden example.
Okay.
I know nothing about Connecticut Medicaid, but it is certainly something I will look into now. And that was the call out to more of those centralized state-run controls that I believe that was modeled after the proposal.
But none of this can happen without agreement from the legislature it can't be done by executive order. Nope. It can't be saying like this administration's going to do it. It has to go through the legislature. And my concern with that, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, is how long is it going to take? Mm-hmm. Because you have highlighted so many people who have fallen victim to what this fraud has done in terms of gotten rid of services that they needed.
Yeah, and I don't want to speculate, but it is fair to say that you have a HSS program that is currently terminated and being hopefully rewritten. That is the plan. So would this impact that? Would this push something like that back further if you're dealing with rewriting an entire state program and also centralizing your controls? Like, it's a lot going on.
Right.
This might not push it back, but it could. You know, some of these piloted, we expect untils that came out of today's proposal can run up to 2031 for some of the longer term responses and ideas that they have floating out there. So we're in it for the long haul here in Minnesota.
Right. And tell me about this request for proposal. There's that going on. And then the other thing you brought up is that the state needs to modernize its basic computer software that enrolls people in Medicaid. The governor brought that up, and actually Republican Representative Torkelson agreed with that. Like, yeah, on that point, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees on the revamping of technology and systems within DHS. In sitting down with the DHS commissioner for some of our investigations, she was very transparent about the fact that they were not able to keep up with what fraudsters and AI have been able to turn up. They didn't have the controls in order to see, okay, this billing has words in it. So that's services that they've done. Well, AI could have created those. Okay. So the complexity of fraud, their technology just simply could not see. So that's pretty across the board. We need a change in tech.
We need to invest in that.
Yeah, we need to invest in that. Even Rep. Robbins today said, like, that's what we need to focus on.
Okay.
Torkelson said the same thing. That's clear.
So perhaps if that's the one agreed upon point today, that's where we'll see some movement quickly. And again, the request for proposal, what is that?
So that is essentially calling for outside consulting agencies to look at the issue and say, this is what you need to do going forward. Some of those line items included like culture, overall efficacy, how these things will roll out, what's the success rate, those overarching, like, paint that picture for me. Are we moving in the right direction? What would this look like? What would this cost? So they're looking at those consulting agencies to come in and say, here's that picture for you.
And in that kind of scenario, is it a possibility that, down the road, so they do the RFPs, the work gets done, Group A comes back to the state and says, here's what we found. And because it comes from someone who is not named Governor Tim Walz, that it could be taken a little less with a partisan spin?
Maybe. And you would also hope the same if the opposite was true, right? You would hope if this consulting agency came up and were like, we painted the picture, it's a bad idea, then it wouldn't go forward. So yeah, you hope for the right idea to win. The best idea, the right idea. Politics aside, you hope for the right idea to win. Will that happen?
The right idea for the state moving forward.
The right idea for the state. Because the right idea for Minnesotans.
Yeah, enough harm has been done financially, emotionally, psychologically, that we must move forward.
Yeah.
All right. Kelly Dietz, we thank you for being on Breaking the News Plus tonight.
Thanks.
As always. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Take care.